there's two sides to every coin. Then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks. And some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fist at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have a meltdown, breakdown, shakedown. 'Cause this is my hometown, so back down, sports clown. It's all just a game, and it's a last down, let down, cowtown. I said it's all just a game. I give the touchdown, the rundown, the lowdown. 'Cause it's over the game, gonna crack down, and shut down, the sundown. I said it's all just a game.
Hey kids, welcome to a Friday edition of this show, which is just a game. I am me and you are you, and I'm really glad you could be here. We got a packed one for you. All kinds of friends on the program, all kinds of things to talk about. Eric Duhatschek in a little while from The Athletic. Obviously, we are in the early stages of round one of the Stanley Cup Playoffs. By the way, we are broadcasting live from Treaty 7 territory, and this is an inclusive program, so everybody is welcome, of course. I want to make sure we stress that. We have to announce this, and we'll get to it with our first guest in just a moment, but a surprise pop-up sale tomorrow, 40% off everything at Ski Cellar Snowboard. So it's a Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., one day only. One day, so just tomorrow. So if you need anything from skicellarsnowboard.com, all three locations, surprise spring pop-up sale. Surprise, I suppose, for some on Monday, as Brad Treliving says, you know what, I'm going to go somewhere else. Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity. So the Flames in the throes of a general manager search. Not much to update on that. Do want to throw the name of Brad Pascal in there. I know that on Wednesday, rather impassioned plea for Craig Conroy, who's been tootling and working under some decent hockey people for a long time now, deserves that opportunity. But as I said, the question shouldn't be, is Craig good enough for the Flames? It's or the good enough for the Flames good enough for Craig. There's some work to be done there, and I'm sure Eric Duhatschek and I will get in there. I want to throw Brad Pascal's name in there as well, the other assistant general manager who works primarily with the American Hockey League affiliates over the last couple of years. Brad's also a qualified hockey guy, and I would suspect he's going to get an opportunity, should get an opportunity to interview for that job. Still have not heard from Daryl Sutter yet. It's a little on the odd side, I suppose, that the head coach of the team doesn't, 10 days later hasn't spoken to the media. But considering what's going on and considering Don Maloney's comments that everything's going to be reevaluated, I suppose perhaps they want to wait till they have some clarity on his role moving forward. Although there seems to be an overwhelming majority in the media side that believe that Daryl is staying. That remains to be seen. Some news just breaking for the Calgary Flames, more importantly for their American Hockey League affiliate. And congratulations, Dustin Wolf has been named the American Hockey League MVP for the season. So what else can you say about the kid? Last 4 years, goalie of the year in the Western League, goalie of the year in the Western League, goalie of the year in the American Hockey League, goalie of the year in the American Hockey League, and now MVP. And we can get into this. We can debate this. There are those who believe that because there are position awards, for the goalies, position awards for pitchers, that sometimes pitchers, goalies don't necessarily get the opportunity, shouldn't get the opportunity to be considered in the most valuable player category. I don't believe that. Now, it would be irresponsible of me to say that it was hands down his, nobody else even close, because I did not watch the American Hockey League that close. I know how good that kid is. I know exactly how good that kid is. We know how good that kid is. But anyway, just further affirmation of the season that the Wranglers had in their first year here in Calgary. Further affirmation about the season that Dustin Wolf just seems to continue. If you go all the way back to his debut during the shortened COVID season where the American Hockey League played for no playoffs, and Dustin Wolf started, and he got his doors blown off in his first start. I think it was 4 goals in the first 7 shots by the Toronto Marlies. If you take that out of the equation, this kid has just been rock solid from the start. And he was in his next start. He was amazing, and has never looked back. So something positive on the horizon for the local hockey heroes. As mentioned, day 3 or whatever of the Stanley Cup playoffs. What do we know? We know there's a lot of parity. We know that home teams started to win last night and the night before. We only have 2 series that are heading back to an alternate destination with one team leading 2-0 in one case, and that's Carolina over the Islanders. I think if you're the Islanders, you feel better going home. You probably can scratch back in this. You lost an overtime game on the road. You haven't played your best hockey. At least that's the things you have to tell yourself. What I'm very curious is what you do if you're Lindy Ruff and the New Jersey Devils, because your boys were playing against men in the first 2 games. They had their doors blown off yet again last night, 5-1 by the Rangers. The Rangers up 2-0 going back to Madison Square Garden. I would say this, and it's too often too easy in this position to always trot out the old tropes and the old, sayings, all those sort of things. But there is 1 or 2 in sport that matter. Sometimes you need to learn how to lose, and sometimes you need to get there and figure what it's all about. The Jersey Devils have not been in the playoffs for a long time. This is a young team. Yep, great regular season, outstanding, great, absolutely. The Rangers, had been to the playoffs last year, had a little bit of a run, got a little bit of a taste, certainly addressed some things as they felt were needs with Tarasenko and Kane and others down the stretch. But this is the one series that one team definitely looks dominant, and that is the Rangers. Thank God, the country can sleep well tonight. The Toronto Maple Leafs evening the series with the Tampa Bay Lightning 7-2. 1-1 is that one. Up and down, feisty, all of those sort of things. Anything else? Winnipeg, I was really hoping Winnipeg, like their game 1. Vegas bouncing back, Colorado bouncing back. Tonight, Carolina can take a stranglehold against the Islanders. Boston and Florida, that series tied at a game apiece. The Panthers seem to have the kryptonite for the Bruins. 2 wins during the regular season, a win here in the postseason against a team that's lost 4 times, something like that, 12, I think, in regulation. Dallas and Minnesota tied at a game apiece. And, of course, for our friends up north, Edmonton and Los Angeles tied at a game apiece. Some news elsewhere. I just wanted to make mention of the Raptors today firing Nick Nurse. Not sure that I ever felt like that was the ending to this story. Now, we all know that lots of rumors towards the end of the year that Nick wanted to leave, maybe go to Houston or some other place, and Toronto was already lined up to look at Boston's coach that got suspended for a year, or didn't coach anyway in the last year. So there was already that story, but I thought this would be kind of like the Tree Living story. Wow, we're just going to go our separate ways. Not the case. Masai Ujiri firing the guy that led the team to their championship in 2019. Interesting to see where that organization goes. And speaking of organizations on the go, how about the old Midnight Express by Oakland yesterday? Middle of the night, they secure property in Vegas. The Oakland A's are moving to Vegas. If you're keeping track, that's now the Golden Knights, the Raiders, the A's, and an F1 race. And F1 might be the biggest sport of all 3 actually in the world right now. NFL maybe, but F1's huge. So Vegas, and it's funny, people I know going on, I don't know, can you take a sport team to Vegas? Yes, we've proven there's 2 million people live in Vegas. Don't get me started on the tourists. 2 million people. Should those 2 million people not have a really crappy baseball team to cheer for? Of course they should. And they get one. They get the A's. You kind of got to wonder what second prize was. But the Oakland A's moving to Vegas. It'll be a nice facility. It'll be supported. And I'm going to go out on a limb and suggest the next time that the NBA expands, we're going to see an NBA team in Vegas. I think that's inevitable too. So, very curious how about in my lifetime, how gambling has gone from this vice, this thing that's kept Pete Rose out of the Hall of Fame, that actually had 3 NFL players suspended today for gambling, and yet it's single-handedly propping up professional sports as we know it. And maybe, I don't know, have you seen any gambling ads on TV, kids? Sometimes. It's and here's Vegas. Like Vegas, the mob town, Vegas, the casino town, Vegas, all of these things. Well, it'll never host. It has a hard time hosting, minor sports. The Golden Knights have been a runaway hit. The Raiders work. Again, I have no doubt that the A's will play in front of far more people and fewer possums in Vegas than they are currently in Oakland. There's a joke in there somewhere. We are broadcasting live from the Oodle Noodle studio, local, loved, and delicious since opening their first store back in 2005. Oodle Noodle has been all flavor and just the right amount of weird, which, again, we can relate to. 2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie. Pickup and delivery. I love this because right out of the gate, I get to talk about one of my favorite causes with one of my favorite people. As we bring in our first guest, brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard. Spring pop-up sale tomorrow, 40% off of everything from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. All 3 locations: McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, Bow Ridge Road Northwest by McDonald's at the bottom of the hill from Winsport. Very pleased to have join us a man who needs I'm going to give him an introduction. He has just freshly returned from Canada's Ultimate Challenge, where he was not successful, but he was on it. He is a former member of our national para-sledge hockey team. We'll get to the name part again. But more importantly than that, he's a stand-up guy for Kidsport as an ambassador in the Calgary Flames Sports Bank. And he's also a big mentor and coach. And among his mentees and the people that he works with, Ryan Straznitsky, as we just passed the 5-year anniversary of the tragedy in Humboldt. Very pleased that 4-time Brian Burke, celebrity Annie Oakley winner, Chris Cederstrand can join us. Four times?
4 times now.
4 times. Okay.
Thanks for having me, Rob.
No problem. I just want to point out that I beat him that year. So there is
you
that.
Haven't beat me yet.
Or were you not there?
I wasn't there. No.
All right. Fair enough.
I'll give one to you.
Thank you. All right. Let's start off with the big stuff for Kidsport. Okay. You were where today doing what?
Yeah, we were just bringing some awareness to the Flames Sport Bank.
Okay.
So I was out in Okotoks at the Ford dealership there and the Volkswagen dealership, and just trying to bring as much awareness as we can, showing people where these drop off points are with Wood Automotive Group. Obviously I'm a big supporter of Kidsport and the Flames Sport Bank, and I mean, they both do absolutely amazing things. And I mean, as valuable as Kidsport is, the Sports Bank is just as valuable because they really help cover that gap for a lot of these kids in need.
So as we speak right now, if you're listening to us or watching us live on the stream, Team Canada Olympic champion, Rebecca Johnson, who I believe is also a coach with the Calgary Flames.
Yes.
And members of the MRU Cougars National Championship Women's Hockey Team and Hockey Calgary. They're at Advantage Ford. So you can go down and say hi to them, get pictures right now. At Big Four Motors, at 1:30, the bottom of the hour, or if you're listening to this on a podcast, it's already happened. Please don't go there looking for Stampeder receiver Colton Hunchak and members of the Outriders. They're going to be at Big Four. And finishing it off 2:30 this afternoon out at Village Honda. We love the people out at Village Honda, and so does ski cross Olympic champion Brady Lehman and former NLL Calgary Roughnecks star Jeff Snide. That's what it says here. And Bob Snyder, I know Bob, and the Elevate lacrosse team. How is Jeff Snyder a former star? Well, I guess he played there. I don't know. But anyway, the Wood Auto Group, always a great place to drop off gently used equipment. Was there much there? Was there inventory in Okotoks? Because you were in 2 locations. Had people drop things off?
Yeah, there was definitely inventory there in the big containers that they had. And yeah, I mean, it's something I think, yeah, I implore people that anybody with that gently used equipment, absolutely utilize those facilities and get them in there. I mean, it's such a huge thing for kids.
What do we need? Well, skates are always huge. Believe it or not, gently used cleats and basketball shoes are also necessary. We can use those. This is where Chris and I learned over time. You don't need my stuff. We need kids. You need kid stuff, right? You need a little big stuff every once in a while mixed in, but really it's those smaller sizes of equipment and all across the spectrum. I mean, I was in there yesterday and we've got badminton rackets and we've got lacrosse and we've got softball and hardball and basketball and soccer. The needs go right across the sports spectrum.
Oh, it's everything. Anything, kids baseball bats, right?
Yeah.
I mean, having a young kid myself, I mean, that's something that we absolutely do. Cause I know a lot of people that just have their, your kids grow to a set of cleats in 6 months. And I mean, they're not even broke in half the time and they end up sitting away in a garage somewhere and then getting chucked out or whatever the case is. Right. And so, yeah, just knowing that that's out there and the awareness for it, is a huge thing
as well. We mentioned that this is for the Calgary Flame Sports Bank, but also tied in with Kidsport Calgary, and Kidsport Calgary continues biggest year ever, I believe last year. And already the numbers we're seeing early in this year, we're on track to another record year, which is good. But it also points to need. There remains a need in this community for assistance to allow kids to play sport.
Oh, there's a huge need for that.
Right.
And I mean, obviously we're seeing that with the demand, coming in for Kidsport and with the sport bank. And so, yeah, I mean, for anybody that can get behind any of the kids sport, whether it's getting to any of the charity events that they do, we have the Champions Celebrity Bash coming up here in May. Any of the bottle drives they do, or just, as simple as making a donation to them. I mean, this is all funds that, stay directly in our community. And, help kids get active in sport and
stay active in sport.
Absolutely. And you get them learning all those other life lessons as well, which is such a massive benefit.
Well, and I mean, I don't know who we're convincing anymore, because I think, the people listening to this podcast would agree, but there needs to be a wider conversation about the mental health crisis that we're living in. And there needs to be a broader conversation about the direct line between being active, being involved in sport, and mental wellness and mental health. We know that there's a direct connection there, and we need to ensure that there's a safety net in place so that kids just don't get left behind.
Oh, 100%. I mean, even just speaking from my story and what sport did for me after my accident. The benefits of it, you almost can't put words to, right? And especially kids coming out of this post-COVID era where they were left, without a lot of activities. I mean, they gain so much from sport, right? It's the mentorship that they get, it's the friendships that they make, the camaraderie, all of that stuff, and that aids in that mental health support for these kids. It gives them avenues to go out there and people to talk to.
Did you get a Mr. Olympia set for Christmas or something? You look a little more jacked than the last time I saw you. Huh?
No,
you didn't. Okay.
No,
you didn't get a workout bench or a weight bench or something.
Got some of those little pink ones.
Is that what you got?
Yeah.
Well, I don't know. You look. I'm a little worried now because it looks like you're starting to take things serious. Where do you want? Well, let's start here because I mentioned it. Canada's Ultimate Challenge. You were on Team Red.
Yes.
Led by Donovan Bailey, and you finished.
We finished fifth.
Fifth out of how many?
Out of six.
Not just proving a point. You weren't dead last.
No, we weren't dead last. That's
okay. Give us a little thumbnail sketch of Canada's Ultimate Challenge. What was it? What was it pitched to you, and what was it when you were done with it?
So it was originally pitched to me to be a coach on the show.
Okay.
And then just as it sort of went through the production piece, they decided it was good for me to be a competitor. for the first season, and then potentially come back as a coach for the next season. So
Okay.
it was, it's a very, very cool show though, because they basically, it's like American Ninja Warrior meets Amazing Race.
Okay.
And we essentially travel across Canada and go to all these, iconic Canadian landmarks, and they turn these things just into some absolutely crazy obstacle courses and really put people through their paces out there. And they're all just very unique challenges. You don't get any intro to them. You basically show up and, you get a little 5-minute planning plan before you head out there. And yeah, it was a very cool thing. I made some very cool relationships, from the show.
So how does one find themselves on the radar for this show? How did you get involved?
I was reached out, somebody from Insight Productions had reached out to me. Then that's the group that does all of that.
Yeah.
I think for the vast majority of everyone there, it was all, application wise, right? Like it's the same thing as applying for Amazing Race or Big Brother or any of those. Yeah. You throw in an application and they sort of have a vetting process, and then you go through, and it made for some interesting people on the show. So.
Right. Well, yeah. So there's a picture of you and some of your teammates on Team Red. So what was your leader was Donovan Bailey, but tell me about the rest of your team. Who were they? How were they found? How did they end up together with you?
Yeah. I mean, they had all applied to be on the show. And when
these are just random people?
Just random people. So we had,
but you were recruited.
Were
there other people on other teams that were recruited?
I don't believe so. I think everyone sort of applied. Like it was just a little bit of a different avenue.
So once again, you're an anomaly.
I'm an anomaly.
Okay.
There we go. One-legged anomaly.
I didn't say that. I said you were an anomaly.
We had Dilpreet. She was a little East Indian girl on our team, and she was absolutely amazing. She's a personal trainer, amazing compete level. We had Lori on our team who was from Regina, and came out there and gave it her all. And then France is a personal trainer from Toronto.
Okay.
So very diverse group that we had.
Very diverse. 3 personal trainers. How is it diverse?
Well, Lori's not a personal trainer.
No, you are. Well, and Franz is, and right?
They're personal trainers in gyms, though. I don't say I do that.
All right. Well, okay. But you're connected anyway.
I'm connected.
Okay.
But sorry.
So how is it diverse? Like background wise, like shouldn't there have been a fat guy? Like shouldn't I have been on that team?
Did you apply?
No, I didn't know. Nobody asked me. But it just seems like you should put like an old fat guy on there that at the worst possible time his number comes up and he's got to do something, right?
It would make for good TV.
It would make for good TV.
That was one of those things. It made for good TV with my leg in one of the episodes.
Yes, it did. Did you not offer, or was that one of the critiques of the canoeing or the paddling that you should have given your leg to one of your teammates to take?
That happened. We were in doing the kayak challenge, and we ended up having our kayak malfunction, and things went sideways, and then we capsized, and we're sitting there in relatively deep lake water, and I got to get back in the kayak, which anybody that's kayak knows that's not the easiest thing in the world, especially doing it with 2 people.
Right.
And so Skylar jumps back in, and I just look at him. I'm like, you got to take my leg. I'm like, we're screwed.
Yeah.
And so I'm sitting there, like, I have basically one choice, is to take this off and hope that he grabs it. Cause I got 140 grand strapped to my body, and
we should, yes, let's make sure everybody understands here. So you have a prosthetic.
Yes.
From knee down.
Oh, I'm an above knee.
Above knee. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. So you're in deep lake water.
Yes.
Your partner is back in the kayak.
Yeah, we get him back in the kayak.
Okay. You're hanging onto the kayak?
Yeah, I'm just hanging on the outside.
And now you're going to disconnect your prosthetic leg and hand it to him.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
How'd that go over?
It went surprisingly well. Like it was, like I said, it made for great TV because everything was just, in the heat of the moment.
Yeah.
And I just pull it off, hand it to him. He puts it in. I jump in the kayak, and we started, pseudo making our way back because our kayak just only turned right. So that didn't. It was a long process trying to get back when the thing completely failed. Like the rudder ended up getting stuck.
Okay.
And we couldn't, it was actually breaking throughout the whole course of that challenge. And Skylar was able to reach down and fix it.
Yeah.
And the last time when he went to go push to turn, it just went all the way to the bottom and it just got stuck. He couldn't pull it back. And so we were just basically, paddling almost in circles. It was,
and I mean, we got a lot to ground to cover here, but I got to ask, how did they edit that scene? Was that the scene? Because that's part of that's why I don't like reality TV. It always seems to have the same edit, right? Like, the rudder's stuck. Will Chris and Skylar sink? Will they be able to turn right? Stay tuned. You'll find out next on Canada's Ultimate Challenge. Was it that kind of edit? Or
no.
Oh, good.
Wasn't.
Okay.
It's, they
not to make fun of the show.
Oh no.
Yeah.
They played out the challenge pretty well. I mean, they showed our rudder breaking once.
Okay.
Before that, and then we were way out. I mean, like paddling's obviously the closest thing to sledge hockey. I mean, just horsepower at the front of the boat. And Skylar was just steering. So we were, even despite our kayak having the malfunction, we were way out ahead. And then when it finally broke, the black team who ends up winning passes us with about maybe 30% of the race left.
Okay.
And because, they turn back and they're like, they're out of their kayak.
So this should have been you guys lapping the field.
We were way out in front.
Yeah.
And it was just, we couldn't end up overcoming the last piece that happened. And
you weren't sabotaged, were you? There were no shenanigans going on.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think we just got the poor choice of the kayaks out of all of them. And it was a tough one because we needed to win that challenge.
Yeah.
We had a pretty disastrous, Lori had a pretty disastrous swimming challenge before that event, and we knew we were, on the verge of elimination going into that episode. So it was a tough pill to swallow, knowing that it was something that was out of your control at the end of the day. And, unfortunately they couldn't, it's the way they operate. You can't run anything back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they spent probably a good hour after we all finished trying to decide what they were going to do. Like, do we let them just race it again? Do we, and I mean, it just ended up being, that was it. Right. We just had to play it out because it was a massive production. Like, I think we were 30 people, like with cast and coaches, and then there was 150 crew.
Whew. So that's a movie.
It was,
right?
It was insane. Like,
wow. And where was this part shot?
That was in Thousand Islands.
Thousand Islands. Okay. So in Ontario.
Yeah. Okay. So it was, it was just a traveling circus as we went around everywhere. And, I mean, very cool to see because they, like I said, devised some very unique challenges.
So give me the practicalities on this, Chris. Like, when did you do it? How long did it take? What was it? What was life like during the filming?
It was a grind. We started early June and I didn't get home till late July.
So you're gone for 2 months?
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
So we went to Toronto, did some just, initiation stuff. Everyone sort of got to know each other.
Yeah.
And then once you set out on the road, it was 3 or 4 days of filming, travel day, 3 or 4 days of filming, travel day. And you just sort of.
But unlike the ultimate race, not Amazing Race. Thank you. You weren't actually going from point A to point. You weren't racing from point A to point B.
No, that was that was just like more just you're traveling across the country in that sense, right? Just so it was nice that way because there was nothing crazy happening in that sense. It was just the insanity of TV, which very well. And with a production that size, we're sitting out on the tarmac in Kelowna and it's like 42 above. And, it's like, Kate, well, use the main cameras, Kate. Now you do your 6-7 takes and then it's the gimbals and then it's the drone.
Yeah.
And you're just, the challenge itself took 30 seconds each or 30 or 40 seconds each.
Right.
But you're still out there for.
Well, so let me ask you this. Shane Doan and his brother did Man Tracker. And I talked to Shane about it. And I when that show came out, I loved that show. I thought it was really cool. And they were in BC and he said they did the first day was the hunt. And, I think they beat Man Tracker. I'm not 100% sure, but I think they beat Man Tracker. And he said day 2 was they took them back and then they reshot parts of it like that. They needed close-ups here and stuff like that. How did that part work for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it was that, like within that, I mean, you just shot a challenge each day.
Okay.
So you got there, in the morning, you shoot all the stuff with like the podiums where we were all standing, and they do the explanations, and then you go through, and you have your coach talk, and you have your little planning session, right? And it's just do all of that, then everyone just heads off to the challenge.
Yeah.
So I mean, the challenges that were individual challenges, the other competitors didn't get to see what was going on, or the people that were actually going to be competing in it. And
right.
The group challenges, I mean, you just got there and everybody just went. Yeah. So it was, that actual portion of things was very easy to try and, get sorted out. And then it was a lot of travel as well, just because, you end up like we're staying up in Whitehorse and we're driving out to Carcross Crossing, or I don't recall the name of the little desert out there, but so I mean, you're adding travel time into all of this, and then you got to get back and get to the hotel and get fed, and it was an interesting thing.
Okay, of all of the challenges, which was your favorite and which was your least favorite?
I'd have to say my favorite was probably the bail push from the second episode in Hinton, just because that's my wheelhouse, just strength and power, and being able to move that around. And we ended up having a little bit of a argument with me and Franz and Donovan had an argument at the end that was a little bit heated, that they edited quite funny, but
did they?
It was
a little different than you remember it.
Oh yeah, it was a good 6 minute long argument.
Okay.
I mean, you guys got to see like maybe 25 seconds of it. But
for the benefit of those who didn't see it, can you explain the bail?
Yeah, we had just one of the, I think they're 12 or 1,300 pound big round bales.
Yes.
And they basically set up like a racetrack.
Okay.
And you had to push
Why bales in Hinton? Hinton's a forestry town.
Yeah, I don't remember what the rationale was behind that one.
I mean, there's a little bit of farming, not much, but
yeah, they all sort of had something.
Okay.
Like some sort of
did you like the pulp smell?
It was actually, we didn't even know that we were quite far out.
Oh, were you?
Nowhere. And then
where, north or south of Hinton?
I honestly don't even, like, you just jumped on a bus and
you stayed in Hinton, and then you traveled to it.
In Hinton, then you traveled out. So we were quite a ways out, because we were, they did like the Athabasca River one where we had, and then the tree climb one there was that one. Those two were in the same location.
Okay.
And then the bale one was out on some ranch somewhere.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm not familiar with
probably closer to Edson than I would think.
Yeah,
you weren't in. There's only one. It's either Jasper or Edson. You were going one way or the other, right?
Or the other.
Yeah.
It was just
okay.
But yeah, the bale one was really cool, because it was just my wheelhouse, and we ended up doing not bad in that one. Just
how do you end up in a fight with Donovan Bailey?
No, it was actually me and Donovan were on the same side.
Oh, okay. Franz was at the aggrieved party in this.
He was running all over the place. He wasn't following a game plan. And I mean, me and Donovan, he's an incredible guy.
Yeah.
Like he, I still chat with him a lot.
Oh, do you? Okay.
He just, I mean, when we first met, it was just, he literally looked at me and just gave me, he's like, yeah, we're on the same page already. Just compete levels. There's no crap when it comes to you just go out there and you get it done, right? And so it was that was a really cool one, and the hardest one actually for me was the very first one, where I had to walk along some balance beams, because it's just something I've never attempted before, and I didn't even like going out there. I was wearing running shoes, which were not the best choice of a footwear for it,
right?
And it was just trying to learn how to do it and figure it out. And, it took me some time to get over it, but like our team was still doing well at that point. I think I handed my part of the flag off. We were in third place and unfortunately finished in, I think, fifth.
Okay.
But it was just a unique thing to go out there and try and do. And that was sort of my whole idea for being on the show, was to, go out there and push myself and just show people that, there aren't limitations. You can go out there and do what you want. It might look a little bit different the way that I do it, but if you're getting the job done and you're getting a job done as well as everyone else, then you just, I just hope it opens some eyes for some people.
How difficult? So this takes 2 months of your life, and then it debuts when? It was like November, wasn't it?
No, it was like February. It was February.
Wait, was it after was it in the new year already? Yeah. So you had to sit tight on it for like 6 months or so?
Yeah.
How hard was that?
You know what? I mean, I didn't let a lot of people know where I was. Like my family knew, and
Yeah.
it was a
Yeah.
bit of a tough time with that. Like my mom's husband passed away the first week I was gone filming, and so there was some craziness with that. But I mean, we just sort of kept it under wraps,
Right.
and the people that knew me close knew I was off filming something, but I mean, when they don't have the context or anything to what's going on in the competition, you can say you were off doing a reality TV show, and usually that's enough to like suffice for people, get their curiosity back under control.
Yeah. You said off the top that originally you were going to be a coach, then you became a participant with the idea of becoming. Are you going back for season 2?
If there is a season 2,
okay,
which we don't know.
Welcome to television.
Welcome to
right?
television.
Yeah.
I'd enjoy going back as a coach. I think it's something that, I mean, that's sort of been the next step in my career. Has been the coaching side of things, and I think I would bring a lot to the table that way.
Right.
And seeing the coaches and the way that they operated this year, I think it would have been a good fit for me this season, but I think it'll even be a better fit for me next season, just because there's that recognition out there now.
So Gilmore Junio was another coach, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Love Gil. He's
yeah, but I'm only thinking sometimes you must have wanted to pick him up underneath your arm and just drag him. Like,
you know what, Gil, they had an amazing team.
Yeah.
Christian on that team, me and him just became like we came in on the same flight together.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're not talking to anybody, and we just both sort of saw each other, and, and then it was like, he asked what I was doing there, and we both figured out we were there for the same reason. And we just clicked, right? And Christian was just an incredible leader, and they had a team that just gelled. That was probably the biggest thing that I noticed on that show, is that we had, his team was there with a we mentality, and some of the other teams had people that were there with a we mentality, and then people that were there with a me mentality.
Yeah.
And that's just never going to, you're never going to be cohesive at the end of the day. And
so were there, for the lack of a better term, and I mean, obviously it's edited for television, and we know that there's certain things that they do to highlight or whatever, but behind the scenes, were there some prima donnas on this show?
Oh, absolutely.
There was.
Absolutely. There was, I mean, there was a lot of friction that
really
took place off camera.
Did you hit anybody?
Just about.
Actually. Oh, but she didn't. Okay.
I didn't. I got pulled away.
Oh, okay.
There was, I mean, it was like I said, a very, inclusive, very diverse cast.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it was an eye-opening experience, because, you're there, and you've got people, a lot of the people that apply to these shows do have very big personalities to begin with.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
And then, like I said, they're there to push their own agenda.
Yeah.
A lot of the time, which would work great if you're there doing Big Brother.
Right.
But if you're there with a team, that just doesn't pan out, especially when you got, when I look at my sporting background, and there were guys there that played college football, you had some guys with some very high level athletic backgrounds. And then you've got, these prima donnas who, if you were playing on a team with them, somebody would have tuned them in real fast.
Right. But makes for great television.
Absolutely makes for good television.
We can still watch this on CBC Gem.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. You can just download the app. It's a free app.
Okay.
You can watch the show for free on there, actually.
Okay.
If you pay, I think it's $4.99, it just gets rid of the commercials, and sort of off you go. So yeah, if anybody's interested in watching it still, and I'm not sure, there's talk about they might put it back, like run it again
on television
television again. But yeah, as of right now, you can watch it on CBC Gem and laugh at the one-legged guy.
Nobody's going to do that, especially when your best event is pushing a 300-pound bale around a horse track. Yeah. Oh, there's going to be a lot of laughter on that. Let's talk a little, and I made light of it because you and I made light of it before. It is now para hockey, right? You are a former national team member, what at that time was the sledge team.
Yes.
What do you make of what is happening and what is going on these days at the NSO level? Not specifically with the sledge program, but Hockey Canada's been in some hot water now going on 2 years. There is a movement to add a women's national team. I think we've talked about this in the past. Just a thought on the state of the game. Are you still coaching as well?
Yeah.
I'm still so you're still in the grassroots and the thick of it.
Yeah.
Give us a little sense of where para hockey is right now?
I think from the men's side, it's slowly coming along still. As you know, with Russia being out, that was a bit of a hit. Just from a competitive aspect, just they came into the Canadian Tire Cup last year and they were a force. I mean, they gave our boys a good run, and so having them out was a little bit of a hit that way. And the other teams are progressing. Everything that's happened at Hockey Canada hasn't really affected the Sledge team immensely. They essentially kept all their funding. I mean, even the sponsorships and things like that. It didn't seem to affect them a huge amount. So they've had some turnover now. They've got a lot younger team that they're sort of bringing through, and I'm hoping that they can finally figure out, or get that kryptonite, as you said, for the American team, because it's been a rough go.
It's been lopsided, just in results, right?
And I mean it's just for my personal standpoint is the team just isn't playing smart, strategic hockey. You can't play a just run and gun game with the States because they're just too fast.
Right.
You have to just, it's not the Canadian way to play a passive type D.
Yeah.
But that's what you need to do, because Sledge is a game of ankles.
Yeah.
Right? You're not dangling through somebody. You got to beat them wide or beat them with physicality. And we got big guys on our team. That's the thing. And these little double amps that they have down there, you get.
Do you want to explain that? Because that just recently got put on my radar. I guess I should have thought of it, but can you just talk a little bit about why that's important? A double amputee versus a bigger player.
Yeah, I mean, so the double amputees just have an advantage in our sport because we don't have a classified, or it's a classified sport, but because we don't have a point system in our sport, which I personally love, because that puts you
don't want a point system?
I don't want a point
system. Can you, now I got to ask you, in the middle of an explanation, to explain something else, because I just found out about this. In wheelchair basketball, for instance, there's a point system, right? Yes. Can you explain that?
Yeah. So in wheelchair basketball, wheelchair rugby, you have a point system, which generally basically allots you to have 10 points on the court at one time.
Right.
And then depending on your disability, you're allotted a point total.
Right.
And so, if you're an able-bodied person, right, you'd go out there and you'd be a 5-point player.
Okay.
And that means the other 4 players on your team have to have probably a relatively severe disability, because you're down to like, a 1.5 sort of point player, which would be like generally a very high, a high paraplegic or somebody that with multiple amputations.
Right.
So it makes the game, like I said, my personal opinion on it is you don't have the best players playing the game at that point. It's more finding unicorns within the sport.
It makes sense. But I also understand why they do it.
I 100% understand that. But that's where I think if you're going to run a class, you're already being classified for it. If you look at athletics or anything like that, you don't have me racing against somebody with CP that has 2 legs if I'm running 100 meters.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And if you're going to do that, then why are we not doing that in other sports?
Yep.
That, where you do have these classifications, so that you're getting more people involved at the Paralympic level.
Right.
And you're just getting more competition happening across the country.
Right.
Because I could be, incredible at wheelchair basketball, but if I go and try out for the team, I probably wouldn't make it.
Right.
Because I'd be a 4-point player.
Right. Which is, again, if you're trying to amass a team, put 4 other players, now you only have 6 points to allot for those players.
Exactly.
Right.
And so to me, like I said, have you ever met Zach Medell?
No.
So he's the wheelchair rugby kid.
Okay.
Coast.
Yeah.
And he is like the unicorn of wheelchair rugby. So he had meningitis. He lost fingers on both hands. He lost, I think, both legs below the knees, but he wheels around like an able-bodied person, but because of his disability, he's classified as like a 2-point player.
Okay.
And so that becomes sort of the focus in trying to find, building a team in that sense. So it's
less about what you bring and more about what you're,
And so that's with para ice hockey. That's what I love about it is, if you have a lower body disability, that's your classification. It stops there.
Yeah.
Right. But with the Americans, I mean, they have such a huge population pool, right? They're 10 times our size as far as population goes.
Right.
Right. And then I mean, they're a very active military country on top of that, and they draw from
they recruit from the VA.
They do an incredible, like you go down to any of the military hospitals down there, and they're getting you involved in sport while you're there, and you're fully involved in a Paralympic sport by the time you leave.
Yep.
And so down there, I mean, when you have in sledge hockey, when you got these double amputees, so double above knee amputees or even double below knee amputees, from one side, their sled is way shorter than what, I mean, I'm 6'3", my sled is massively long.
Yep.
So if you're racing against somebody, or if I'm trying to angle somebody off to the boards, there becomes a point where he can turn to the boards and I can't. So he has a massive advantage in that sense, where he can now maneuver and I can't. And then from a speed standpoint, they don't have anything restricting their stride going forward. So when I'm pulling in my sled, because I still have a leg, I still have that restriction of flexibility and everything else there. And you watch some of the guys like Brody Roble, or Declan Farmer. I mean, when they take these strides, there's nothing. They way out in front of them.
Yeah.
And they're just able to take off. Yeah. Right. And so it's you have to find a way to combat that speed. And the run and gun game, the hitting game, we've tried it now for, a lot of years, and it just hasn't paid off. Right. And they have an incredible development system in the States, which again is a huge benefit to them. Our development system up here from the NSO level, I'd say needs some restructuring.
Really?
Work.
You're telling me there's an NSO that needs to be restructured in Canada. This is the first I'm hearing of it. No, I get it. Do you care to opine a little bit on the gender equity part? Because it strikes me as a little odd that we don't have a women's national team, but I don't know a lot about it either. So I don't want to weigh in and you know what I mean?
And I'm all for it. I have absolutely no issues with it.
Are there other countries like
that's where the problem was?
Oh, okay.
Is so that, it's really being brought up, and it definitely deserves the light that's being brought to it, because it's, there's some amazing girls on that team. One of the actual Kaylee King from Calgary here just made it this year, and my foundation gave her sled this winter. So
name dropper.
It's gotta try and do what I can.
But that's important, right? And we'll get into that in a second, because that's another conversation. But but they got to have somebody to play,
and that's the problem, is that to be a Paralympic sport, you need to have at least 8 teams. You need to have at least 8 countries involved.
Yeah,
and they don't have that. They had their Worlds last year, what they called Worlds, and they had Canada, the US, and Team World. That was all that they could put together for that. And so from a standpoint, especially from our own the podium and our government standpoint, like funding, it can't be a Paralympic sport because there's not enough teams.
Right.
And so,
so it's not it's not as much about diversity and inclusion as it is about the competition.
There's just no competition for them. And that is their main hurdle it's actually their only hurdle in becoming a recognized Paralympic sport. Is there needs to be, they need to have other teams in there that are fully funded and be able to, the reality of it is it'll be no different than the men's team is right now, right? You're going to have Canada and the US at the top.
Yep. And
then you're going to have, like Great Britain has had a team for a while over there. So, they've got some good players, but that drop off is just going to be immense. And it's just been a much slower growing process for them, just because throughout our grassroots program, it's all mixed.
Yep.
Right. So, there's no 2 different streams. It's all mixed at that point. And it's just, one of those unfortunate thing. There's not a lot of females that get into the sport.
Well, and that allows us now to broach into, because we're here today talking because it's, it's a big day for Kidsport and the Calgary Flame Sports Bank. They're out at Wood Auto locations all across Calgary as drop-off locations. But 99.9 of that is for able-bodied athletes.
Yes.
Let's talk a little bit about one of the things that nobody ever seems to talk about, but is an absolute fact, is the cost of parasport. That it's as much as it's a great alternative, and God bless them, David Legge and all of these the Adapted Hub, everybody's working their tails off. But how much is a sled?
Just
play hockey?
Yeah, just your basic, starter sled is about $700.
Okay.
Right. So, but when you compare that to, taking your kid out to play Timbits and buying a pair of $80 skates.
Yeah, there's no Canadian Tire version of a sled that you can start in.
No.
What about a wheelchair basketball chair?
That just starts getting crazy, right? Because now it's a lot more customized. The beginner sleds are very adjustable. The wheelchair basketball and rugby, you're getting to you're talking like $4 or $5 grand.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. And that's a huge amount of money, especially if you're, raising a kid with a disability, because you have a lot of your funds going out to extra stuff already.
Right.
A lot of this stuff is not covered. Your daily, you get some stuff covered, but it's a drop in the hat compared to what these parents are spending from an overall standpoint. And so paying $700 for a sled
and we'll talk about our friend Ryan here in a second, but Ryan put out some video of him golfing he's able to golf in an upright position. How much is that machine worth?
They're about 40 grand. Cause we were just out. I was just out with him at Launchpad down in Heritage Point, and because we're going to really push getting some golfing going this summer. And we really want to bring some more light to it and have it become a Paralympic sport.
Right.
I've golfed for a lot of years, and some of these kids out there, it's unbelievable what they can do.
But $40,000 is prohibitive. Now, if I understand it, the one he used is actually owned by a course.
Yes.
And they allowed him to take it to another course?
No, it's actually owned by the Rad Sport.
That owns the courses.
Yes.
Gotcha.
And,
okay.
And so it was here. They had it at Bears Paw, and then they had it down at Heritage.
Yeah.
And I think it's been moved back to BC now. So we're actively trying to locate one of these for
So in a golfing hotbed like this city, with the insane amount of golfing that we do not have one of those of our own.
No.
Okay.
No, it's
that seems like, and me and my love of golf. Oh, I love it, but we need it. And that to me is, as we talk about, equipment, how many kids are left to the side because it is prohibitive to start modifications, or, it doesn't even necessarily need to be a chair or anything, but modifications to equipment, right?
Yeah. Oh no, exactly. I mean,
that's what you do that, but that's what your foundation does a little bit of, right?
Yes.
You help with that.
Yeah. It's getting kids, or, kids or adults, with getting them adaptive equipment,
right,
or access to it, or subsidizing it, however we can help out. Because obviously, when you're getting into some of these crazy numbers, 40 grand for a golfer is just, that's
but even, even like you say, $700 to $1,000 or a chair or whatever, what are you putting the child in, or what are you letting the kid do? Just recreational? If they get good, then
it just goes up from there. That's the thing, right?
But then it's access, right? And then it's finding the right venue. And there's, again, we continue to be a little bit behind the rest of the world in this province, don't we?
Actually, Calgary has now become probably one of the best facilities or cities as far as accessibility for especially rinks.
You mean community rinks? You don't mean the Dome?
No, God, no. I've had to be on the ice at the Dome. That is not a fun process.
No. But things like WinSport, some of the newer facilities, they're built with that in mind.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Yeah, okay, that's excellent.
We've got quite a few rinks here in Calgary now where we're able to do that. Where before it was just at WinSport, and then we were, we had our little ones out at Stu Henry,
right,
where it was, carrying them out onto the ice. And
people don't understand that, do they, Chris? Like, I know we have better facilities. We don't have a sledge purposed arena, do we? Built for sledge only. We have convertibles.
We all have convertibles. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But out east, isn't there a sledge? I thought on the East Coast there was a sledge built purpose facility.
There might be, but at the end of the day, they still have to be set up for stand-up hockey, right? Like, I mean,
that's going to be your biggest.
That's exactly
revenue driver, right?
You need to have that there, and I mean that it's actually been just growing it in the sense that. So I helped design the rink in Okotoks.
Okay.
And one of the huge issues that we had at WinSport while I was playing is we never got to use the benches because it was an hour-long process.
Yes.
For the guys to take the benches out,
right,
So you're essentially losing 2 hours of ice
Yep.
to rent an hour of ice.
Yep.
Well, we devised the system in Okotoks. It takes a flood
To take the benches
to
out.
take the benches out. So
Which
it
is
becomes,
perfect. Yep.
and that's sort of now become more of the staple.
And is
thing.
there glass so you can see out?
Yeah, there's glass so you can see out.
Okay.
And I mean, we're looking at trying to build a new facility just south of the Costco on the Ring Road.
Okay.
And this one would be 100% accessible and done in
I
ways
love
that the dressing rooms are fully accessible, done so that guys
Can I ask a favor? Can you make the dressing rooms also with the sensory issues in mind too?
Yes.
Can they be big and round so that superheroes kids could come in there? That'd be awesome.
Yeah,
That's what we need.
We will. Yeah, we're gonna try and do it so it encompasses everybody that way. And I mean, that's something I didn't even know about. So,
well, we've on the superhero side, because it's so important for us. The big challenge is with kids that have sensory issues that you need some space, right? They need to lay out their equipment. Not all of them, but some of them do. And you need a quieter, if we couldn't take them to the old corral.
No.
Right? Because the dressing rooms would be too small. People would be on top of them. But Edmonton, with our superheroes program, we don't have that. We have these smallish rooms, and boy, you notice it. Kids get nervous and they get anxious and things like that. That's not what the experience is supposed to be about.
No,
right?
No, well, and that's something that we can absolutely, have one of the rooms built that way, right?
Right.
I mean, it's we are looking at it from a sledge aspect.
Yeah.
But I mean, this is absolutely something that I would love to.
I know a guy.
Part of it.
I know a guy.
I
know a guy.
So I mean, to have a facility like that would just be unreal, right? And it's that constant involvement of it. Everyone.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Because we're going through the politics of an election and everything. And one thing that's come up is, Alberta remains the only province without legislation on access, right? So it's nice to hear that the facilities have taken it upon themselves. The city has taken it upon themselves as we build facilities to keep that in mind. It has to be part. I'm not taking a run at the Flames or anything when I talk about the Dome. It just was built in a time that wasn't a consideration. It should have been, but it wasn't. Yep. Right.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, me and Straz skate all the time out at, East Calgary.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that, facility was built back. I don't even know when. I mean, you let the wheelchair ramp down there, you could use as a motorbike ramp if you went back up it. And the funny part is it's like from me to you away, and it's just a concrete wall.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you get, wintertime, it's icy. You get somebody coming down there in a chair. I mean, you're coming in hot on this concrete wall.
Terrible. You brought his name up. I want to just kind of end with that. 5 years ago, a couple of weeks ago was, I don't like using the word anniversary because it not on purpose, but it almost sounds celebratory. It's just not what it is. The world changed. The world changed. And we, especially here in Calgary, got to know Ryan Strasnitzky and Straz. And I was with him last week, and it's been a while. Oh my God. If you need a speaker, if you need somebody to come up and tell a story, it's Ryan. He blew me away. His presentation about mindset and the way he delivered it, he hit these spots where, this is going to be hard. And he just, he talking about the accident and talking about recovery and everything. And what he shows you, you've done an amazing job as a mentor. You really, really have. And to point it out, you were one of the first people to go to Saskatoon and visit the players after the accident. I know this because I know you, but also it's part of his presentation. The people that came, you were right there for him day one, and you've been working with him. And I told him how incredible it was, but you need to hear how incredible it was, because you've been just an incredible mentor for this young man. Well done.
Oh, thank you. I mean, that's, he's done it himself. I mean, I've been, honored to be along with the journey and his continued journey, but he is such an amazing young man.
He really is.
I don't have words for him. I mean, every time I'm asked this, he's always surprising me, and it is just.
But there's been an evolution, wouldn't you say? And I think it's natural. But we did Cowboys and Sleds That was right after. That was September, right?
Was September 2019.
And that was, he gets in a sled. And I just remember he scored. And it was almost like, yeah, I know, but he didn't believe in it.
Yeah.
And now, I mean, he's up there talking about being part of the 2026 team and, the work that he puts in and the dedication he has. And then he shows the golf and the machine and he talks openly about it. It's just so, again, yes, he deserves, I will praise, I want to get him on the show to talk about it, but I want you to know that your work is right there. Like, that's mentorship. When we talk about leadership and mentors, that's what it is. At the worst possible moment in someone's life, you stepped in and you led and you've been a part of this. And it's been incredible. It was just incredible to watch it. And I encourage groups out there that are looking, this man, Ryan, there's a picture of the two of you, Straz or Chris, you couldn't ask for better speakers and more uplifting speakers because your stories are incredible, but you deserve so much credit, Chris, for the work that you've done with him.
Thank you.
I mean, he deserves it too. Don't get me wrong, but he's not here. You are.
No, I know.
Right.
And I mean, but like I said, it's something that, from my standpoint, it was something I never wanted anybody to go through after what I went through in the hospital. And so being able to go out there and help, and show these people. And I mean, Straz just, he's a kid that just ran with it. Right. Oh. And he took everything that I said from the word go and just, he believed in it and he saw the light at the end of the tunnel. And I mean, you mentioned like the anniversary side of things, and it's sort of, there's obviously, you have that day in which, it was a bad day, a bad thing that happened. But I think both me and Straz look at it now as this was just a very, it was a minute of our lives. Yeah. Right. And are you going to let a minute of your life? And I mean, I can't even count, if you broke that down into seconds, right? Even hours, you are you going to let that dictate the rest of your life or let that ruin what's going on? And when I talk to him now, I mean, it's obviously you're still going to have struggles. You're still going to have pain and hurt. But he looks at it now and he sees the difference. And he sees the difference that he makes with the world. Yeah. He's now looking at it going, he might have, the accident not had happened. He might have been playing, college hockey. And then what? I think he was going to be a minor pro player. Like, that's where I think he thought he was going to be. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And now he's out there making a difference to millions and millions of people. And it's something that, I think he sees that now. And like I said, regardless of the struggles, it's the impact that he's able to have now is a million times greater than had he just played minor pro hockey somewhere and, rode off into the sunset with a hockey career. And it's, I mean, it's a remarkable thing to see the evolution of him. And I mean, he's, now been with our national para program. He's broken that, broken through that ceiling where he's now to that point. And I mean, that's an incredible thing coming from, the type of disability that he has to be able to get to that point. Right. Just shows the kind of character that he has and the kind of drive that he has, because I've never seen it before in anybody.
Oh, it's impressive. When he stepped on the stage last weekend and he talked to the group that I was with, and like I say, he was so smooth and polished, not in the snake oil salesman way, but like I've seen him come up and talk and be, and now he's comfortable in his own skin. He's confident in his message. He believes in what he's saying. He knows his place in the world. Does that make sense? Like, that's the observation I would make.
No, that definitely makes sense. Right. And I mean, he's been able to use his platform. We've been able to do some amazing things. I mean, through the Flames Foundation, we have our sledge hockey, our Flames sledge hockey team now. Yep. We are now, we have a roller sled system we're actually just going to be launching with them. So we're, tomorrow we're out with the CPS, getting a whole bunch of kids out. We got the Kids Cancer Center. Like, it's because of guys like him, that we've been able to make these incredible strides in parasport, right? He's brought so much awareness to it that that trickle down effect has been absolutely amazing. And we're getting more kids involved in sport, which I know for both of us is something that that's all we want.
That's all we want. And all kids. Right, all kids. It
right
can't be
across the
just a
board.
certain group of kids. Got to be all kids,
Absolutely, right
and they all
across the
deserve
board.
the opportunity. Yeah. No, it was just by happenstance. I was with him last week, and you're on the show this week. But you need to know the work you did. I mean, like, it pays off. Like,
Thank you.
sure. I mean, you got the weight bench for Christmas, and we're seeing the difference there. But this is real. Hey, so Canada's Ultimate Challenge. That's available, as I mentioned. CBC, maybe a season 2.
Maybe a season 2. Nothing.
And how will we know? Well, I'll just text you in June and July, and if you don't text me back, I know.
Well,
right?
We'll see where things are at.
Yeah, we'll see where things are at. Would you sucker punch Gilmore Jr.? Like, if he's on next year, that would be fantastic.
That's.
I mean, I love Gilmore. He's great. I like him to come on. I have no bone to pick, but I know you two, and I just think it would be a great story. Or he sucker punches you.
Oh, Then we'll do the celebrity bash. There we go.
Yes, and then you guys can fight. The May 20th. We should point that out for Kidsport. May 20th, you'll be hosting a table at the Celebrity Champion Celebrity Bash. I'm only on the organizing committee. I should know. As well, today, the Calgary Flames Sports Bank and Wood Automotive Group are revving up their drop-off locations for gently used equipment. So you were out in Okotoks. So you were at Okotoks Volkswagen and Okotoks Ford Lincoln this morning. As well, Woodridge Ford Lincoln, South Center Volkswagen, Advantage Ford, Big Four Motors, and of course, our friends at Village Honda. Outside of that, you're really not that busy, are you? I mean, just this stuff here.
I have too much time to spend in the gym, apparently. So
apparently, holy cow!
No, it's a good busy, and I
slow down, Arnold.
I enjoy doing it all. I mean, it's something that just being able to help. I'm going to do another shameless plug here. Unfortunately,
please.
My foundation is going to be doing our first big event, May 21st.
Oh, what are you doing?
Out in Okotoks, we're going to have a sledge, like a little sledge tournament and a try it sledge.
Fantastic.
So if anyone's interested in entering a team, you can reach out through the Cederstrand Foundation website.
Okay.
We're going to have some celebrities out there.
Okay.
Gonna have some fun, get people out there in sleds, and just get some awareness out there so that everybody can, get involved in sport.
I love it. That's outstanding. Chris, thank you for this. Again, can't say enough. The work you and Straz have done, it's amazing, and it needs to be noted. Other than that, you're not bad. Thanks for stopping by.
My pleasure. I'll beat you this year.
Yeah.
Again. Don't worry.
I know you. As long as you show up, I don't have a chance. Chris Cederstrand, everybody. Of course, brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. 76 years in Calgary, but it's tomorrow. We're worried about tomorrow, Saturday, April 22nd, one day only, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. The spring pop-up sale, 40% off of everything. 3 locations: McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, and Bow Ridge Road Northwest by McDonald's at the bottom of the hill from Winsport. In a couple of moments, we are going to get connected with our good friend Eric Duhatschek. He will join us here in the Oodle Noodle studio. Oodle Noodle, they bring the heat. Try butter chicken, mac and cheese, Kung Pao noodles, Bangkok Pad Thai Classic, vegetarian and gluten-friendly options. 2 locations, 1244 17th Avenue Southwest, 105 Main Street North in Airdrie. Pick up and delivery. So we'll be joined by Mr. Duhatschek here in a couple of moments. Gives us an opportunity just to revisit a couple of notes from today. As we mentioned when we came on the air, what a year for young Dustin Wolf. He is second year in a row. He's first team All-Star, second year in a row. He's the goalie of the year in the American Hockey League. Now he's just the MVP of the American Hockey League. What has this kid has done it all. I don't know what he's got left to do. You heard Brent Cron talk about it on Wednesday. I think the Flames, the easy play here, and you hate to do it because he's a good teammate and people like him, but the odd man out looks like Vladar. It doesn't. Markstrom's going to play what? Markstrom's going to, even if he plays 50 games, that's 30 plus games for Wolf next year. This is not a Mika Kiprusoff 74 game team anymore where you're only going to get 8 games as the backup. Wolf will get a little bit of work. All right. Enough of me talking about Wolf. I might even ask our next guest about Wolf, but he joins us. That is Eric Duhatschek from The Athletic. Of course, all of our guests brought to you by the Ski Cellar Snowboard, and they have their surprise sale on tomorrow. 40% off everything from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. one day only. At the 3 locations of Ski Cellar Snowboard, McLeod Trail, 17th Avenue, and Bow Ridge Road. Very pleased to have join us from The Athletic live in studio for the second time in a row, Eric Duhatschek. How are you?
I'm okay. I just got back from Edmonton. And boy,
I was going to say, okay. You're going to do the weight. Your arms are tired?
I drove.
You drove?
Yeah.
What was second prize?
No, exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Good. Well, you got to get that out of the way first.
Oh,
right?
You do.
Well, but I will say this. I thought the hockey was pretty compelling. Like I
Was
really
it?
Well, I thought so. I mean, I guess everybody's. What are people focused on? It seems to me that the people are focused on Toronto, Tampa, the Rangers, Jersey, and I've been kind of following Edmonton, Los Angeles, and on the off days, Seattle, Colorado, and I've found both series to be very, very interesting. Los Angeles is flat out a better team than they were a year ago. They have better goaltending, they have better defense, and I don't know if they're going to get Kevin Fiala back, but I would really like to see them get Kevin Fiala back because he was a real X factor for them this year. I thought the way Todd McClellan deployed him as kind of a third line guy, 5-on-5, really gave them 3 effective forward lines, and then he was a catalyst on the power play. Now, King's power play has been pretty good in the series so far, but I like the way they've played this rope-a-dope, bend but don't break style. Yeah. And I mean, it just feels like another one of those series that could go down to the wire. And so, yeah, I thought I'll go back for Game 5, and then we'll see where we're at.
Did the Oilers escape with a split?
Well, I thought they were the better team in both games.
Okay.
But it for sure in that first game, LA didn't have anything going early, and then all of a sudden chip away, and then conjure something up in overtime on the power play. But the second game, when you're sitting there, because we write columns on deadline, so it's 2-0 Edmonton, and at that point it looks like okay. A year ago, 4-3 in the opener, same script. This year, it's 2-0. Could 2-0 become 6-0, which is what happened in Game 2 last year. Yeah. And you're leaning towards same script, and then it's suddenly 2-2, and that second goal by Velarde on Skinner was not great. And now in the second intermission, you're writing the other side of it, which is, wow, can you imagine Edmonton going down 2-0, heading back to California, and the questions that will be asked? And then they got that a very important early goal from a depth guy, which is a big difference on this team. Yep. And then I thought after that they showed a lot of poise to lock it down. So, but again, to me, ebbs and flows are what playoffs are all about. And I just like the way Los Angeles there's a maturity about their game that they don't get flustered and they don't start running around it. The little bit that I've looked in on the other series, there is a little bit of that running around, that little bit of that playing like chickens with their heads cut off, and I don't see that in the 2 series I've been monitoring. I thought there was a lot of poise on display in Seattle, Colorado too. Good, fast, go hockey, like really good hitting. Like Yanni Gourde again is proving that this is a playoff player to be reckoned with, and just really interesting to watch from a perspective of someone that watches hockey for a living.
The Oilers, lot was made about the additions and the changes. Skinner's come in and been fine as a rookie goaltender. Yeah. You mentioned like Costin got the goal, or Costin. Do you see the little things now, Eric? I mean, this was a team that we knew could score. They'd score themselves out of trouble. Yeah. But do you see the little details in the game there that maybe they haven't had before?
I would say that's true. But I think that it's 2 things. One, I just think they're flat out better in terms of talent.
Yes.
So if you look at their 1 to 5 forwards, I don't think Kane has had a great series so far, but he was tremendous in last year's playoffs, and I think he's somebody that can raise the level of his play again. And Nugent Hopkins had the best year of his career. Hyman had the best year of his career. McDavid had the best year of his career. I mean, I don't think anybody has a better 1 to 5 forward group than Edmonton does. And then I think that that selectively the players that they've got filling those 6 to 11, because they're playing 11 forwards again after the injury to Janmark, are just flat out better. Like I like Nick Bukestad, that third line center matchup. But it looks like Lizotte is out tonight for for Los Angeles, but you've got a 6'6" guy against a 5'6" guy. I mean, that's hard. That's hard on a team like Los Angeles. And I like the way Bukestad carries himself. We'd had a good conversation in the dressing room the other day. And then, lots of people have said this, but Ekholm does make a difference. He's just one of those guys that leads from the way his presence on the team, his presence on the bench, his presence in the dressing room. He's just a guy that knows how to play the game efficiently, physically. I think he was a real catalyst in that 14-0-1 run at the end of the season. To me, actually, the one thing about Edmonton at the trade deadline that I wondered about was Evan Bouchard ready to step in as PP quarterback one, because in order to make the Ekholm trade, they moved out Tyson Barrie. And so Tyson Barrie, excellent power play guy, sheltered minutes on the third pair, but not bad this year. If you talk to everybody, to the people in Edmonton that saw them play night in and night out, they will tell you that Barrie had a very good year. So that is that I can't ever remember somebody, taking a power play that was on its way to being like a historic greatest power play of all time, and then changing it in the middle of a season, and it hasn't missed a beat. So that to me was important, that Bouchard had developed enough maturity and experience to step in, and he has been, I think, as effective as Barrie. And lots of what works on that power play is, the play down low, that cross seam pass from McDavid to Draisaitl for the one-timer. But, so you haven't hurt yourself by subtracting Barrie, but you've really improved yourself by adding Ekholm. And that to me is, I think, why a lot of people thought that Edmonton had a chance to come out of the conference, and they do. They when you think about a 1-1 split and Connor McDavid has just a single assist in the game, he's obviously got another level that he can get to, and when he gets to that level, which he will, it could be interesting.
So what does LA hang its hat on going home? Because you're absolutely right. You're not going to keep McDavid under wraps like that. I mean, how old is Kopitar, by the way?
1 million years old. But he doesn't play that way,
no.
right? I guess that's the point you're making. He's not playing that way.
He's timeless right now.
I think he's been rejuvenated. And,
okay.
And again, I've been around Los Angeles lots in the last few years, and I just felt that when they were in the sort of the early stages of that rebuild, he's a great professional. He's the son of a coach. Daryl Sutter will tell you it's probably the best center that he's ever had. But I think it's hard to be good for 82 games when you probably don't have much of a chance to play in the playoffs. So I think what's happened in the last couple of years, as they've turned the corner and supplemented that lineup with good pros like Fiala and like Victor Arvidsson, and the development of Trevor Moore, and signing Philip Deneau. Now he's got some help. It's not just him anymore, and he just looks like a guy who's got a second wind in his career. You were asking, what do you hang your hat on? Well, you hang your hat on the fact that Deneau doesn't get intimidated by playing against Draisaitl and McDavid. That Kopitar doesn't get intimidated by playing against those guys. They're in the Selke conversation most years for a reason, and there's very few teams that can roll out two guys that can produce offensively, especially Kopitar, and still get the job done defensively. And Deneau, he spoke a couple of times in the last couple of days, and there's a pleasing cockiness to him. I like him. Yes, I like him a lot because he's played a long time and he's had some success, and he doesn't get worried or flustered by some nights when it doesn't kind of go their way, because Draisaitl has been outstanding for Edmonton. He's just been really, really good. But those two guys, I think they have their own Ekholm in Gavrikov, who's been a very effective player, actually better in the playoffs than in the regular season. There were moments in the regular season when it was what about him? And then one of the focal points, of course, in the series is Mikey Anderson. So you have to be a pretty hardcore hockey fan to know very much about who is Mikey Anderson. That was one of my questions for Todd McLellan. I said, how and when did this guy become such a good player? And his answer was simply, he said, well, we've known he's been a good player for a long period of time, but the rest of the league is just catching up. But one of the things about a guy like Anderson, who again carries himself with a lot of confidence, and that's Joey Anderson's brother, who's probably more well known, but not as good a player. playing with Drew Doughty can be a challenge. It can be a challenge, you know, because sometimes you have to kind of clean up the messes that Doughty makes, and Doughty likes the puck on his stick, and he likes to go, and so it takes a special skill set and personality, I would say, to play effectively with Drew Doughty, and they are an excellent pair together. They are an excellent pair together, and they burn up 25 minutes per night. So, you know, we're always talking about, you know, the most underrated this, the most underrated that. I think if you were to put together a list of the 10 most underrated defensemen, the ones that really fly under the radar, because I think, you know, Ekholm would be on that list, but he doesn't really fly under the radar. I think everyone knows he was a great number 2 in Nashville, but Mikey Anderson for sure would be on that list. You know, he's just one of those guys that efficiently gets the job done. You know, I never, you know, I mean, it's not Nicholas Lidstrom, but you know, when you think about the things that Nicholas Lidstrom brought to the mix to become one of the greatest players of all time, it was those understated things, just being in the right position, just making it look effortless, right? That's hard to do. It's hard to make it look effortless. But you can, but the really efficient players are the ones that make it look effortless. Just knowing you need to be here rather than there, and that's my impression of Mikey Anderson. At some point, I'll probably write about him, but you know, they have a mature team, and I think the goaltender has fit in very well. That was another conversation I had with the coach there, Todd McClellan, because Todd's been around forever too. And I said, you know yourself, the long history of National Hockey League trades is that there's very few times when a team has traded for a goalie at or near the deadline, grafted him onto the roster, and had it worked out. And I said, you know, in your experience, you know, has that ever happened? And he said, well, not in my NHL experience. And he suggested that the closest that ever happened was when Detroit had Dominik Hasek that year that they won, I think in 2008, but Hasek got hurt and they ended up having to rely on Chris Osgood, and Osgood came through for them too. And his point was that you often need two, and he is, whenever people ask about Korpisalo, he always brings up Phoenix Copley as a guy that helped save their season because they weren't getting it done from the other two guys that they started the year with. But Korpisalo, you know, he's a confident guy. And you know, has played for a really bad team for a long period of time. And sometimes guys are just, you know, good bad team goalies, and they go to a good team and they can't get it done. But Korpisalo looks like a guy who's really enjoying playing for a team with structure. And and I wouldn't be,
you don't say.
Well, if you're a goaltender, you probably do like structure in front of you. Look at what Carolina has and how Carolina has turned, you know, sometimes average goaltending into wins in the standings, and very good numbers for the various goaltenders that have patrolled the crease there. So, you know, I mean, that's an off-season question, but Korpisalo is UFA after this year. LA needs a new number one goaltender. You know, if this works out, you know, and they can figure out the numbers, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if he becomes the goaltender of the future for this next generation of Kings players that are coming through the pipeline.
I want to skip over to the East for a second and come back to the West. And the reason I want to go to the East, I started the show with this. It's easy in this job to get caught up in tropes and, you know, history, and this happened, so that must happen. But boy, that Rangers jersey series sure looks like one team needs to learn how to lose, and one team took the lessons from losing and fixed their problems.
Yeah, 100%, Robin. And when I did my preview for The Athletic, I do a thing where I interview a coach, a manager, and a scout, and just get their takes on things. And in every one of those interviews that I did, that was my starting point when it came to the New Jersey Rangers series. The thrust of my question was that, you know, the Rangers last year were that young up and coming team that had made those great strides and didn't seem ready to win. And to be honest with you, I thought they were going out in the first round. And so the fact that they won as much as they did last year surprised me.
Sure.
So, you know, give them credit, because
that was goalie too, though, right?
Oh yeah. But I was not expecting to see them do as well as they did last year. But yes, so they did gain a lot of valuable experience last year. And, you know, they added Patrick Kane and Vladimir Tarasenko.
What they needed, right?
So you've got, you know, you've got experience, like playoff experience, championship experience, you know, guys who, Patrick Kane has said it multiple times in the last little while as he's been interviewed that, he's been kind of rejuvenated by going to a team that had a chance to win after, muddling through the, those lean years in Chicago the last little while. And just in the same way, New Jersey went 47-point year-over-year increase. You have to applaud everything that went right there. They got the right goaltender. Washington cast off 2 goaltenders. Both of them are still playing. Washington isn't playing. Dougie Hamilton had a poor year last year, but he had a much better year this year. So, the money they invested in him as a free agent is proving to now be worth it. They went out and very aggressively brought in Timo Meier because they were small and they felt that they needed more, someone who has skill but also has some size and can push back a little. It hasn't, I don't think, been quite the marriage made in heaven yet. It's been a little bit more of an adjustment for him than I think maybe he and the team thought. But they have a really good team that looks young, and needs to gain a little bit of experience, and are probably doing it right now. So in my mind, the Rangers are going to get through fairly easily. And I thought that ahead of time, but 2 of my 3 experts picked New Jersey. And I thought, wow, okay, I didn't see that coming. A lot of times you you ask the question and you're pretty sure you know what the answer is going to be. And in that particular case, I was surprised that there did seem to be a lot of people that thought that New Jersey would use this regular season as a springboard into the playoffs. The idea that they're playing with house money, right? And they've got nothing to lose, and we're young and we're enthusiastic. It's like the Oilers of '83, I guess, the last year, when they kind of broke through, but before they ever won anything. And so we'll see. I mean, the series, when you think about travel.
There's none.
I mean, there is sometimes traffic on the turnpike.
Yeah, there might be traffic. Yeah.
But that's about it.
Yeah.
So I don't think either team is going to expend a lot of energy getting from
point A to point
A to point B. Yeah.
So take me back to the West. If I thought somebody in the West was going to have their doors blown off, I thought it was Seattle.
Yeah.
But you mentioned Gordy. Now, there's a lot of pressure now being an expansion team after the Vegas Golden Knights, right? Now the Seattle makes it in their second year. They played well in those first 2 games against
really well,
Colorado,
really
right?
well, and they could have won them both, right?
So
again, those are the 2 series I've been following at Los Angeles and Edmonton and Seattle and Colorado. So I think Seattle completely caught Colorado by surprise in that first game, and then the first period didn't look particularly good for Colorado, and then they got the 2 quick goals, but then it was a battle right to the end. And so I think Colorado, they started to play a bit more freely after they tied the game, and I think that they will relax a little bit to going into game 3. But yeah, so again, one of the column I wrote today looked at ice time there, and here's the big difference as near as I can see. Seattle plays the heck out of Larson.
Yep.
And I lost my train of thought. Larson and Dunn.
Dunn.
So Larson and Dunn play 24 minutes. Yeah. Okay. So but their forward group, they only had 2 forwards over 19 minutes. That was Wenberg and Schwartz, who's also a Stanley Cup champion.
Yep.
And and they roll the 4 lines, and everybody gives them a little bit of something. And then you look at Colorado's makeup up front. So 5 guys over 19 minutes, McKinnon over 22. They have to play. JT Comfort played 21 plus minutes the other night. They just do not have the depth. 6 of their forwards played under 10 minutes. Yeah. So they're really relying heavily on the top 6, and they're just trying to get by with the bottom 6. And that's a function of Gabe Landeskog not being healthy enough to play, and Kadri leaving. Yeah. Burakovsky's in Seattle now, not so the depth that they had isn't there. It doesn't mean they can't win, because McKinnon is just driving play, and Rantanen has been okay, but he's capable of taking it to another level. But the one thing that Seattle has that Colorado doesn't is depth up front. Mm-hmm. And boy, one injury to one of those key guys up front, and Colorado is going to be thin. So I that series feels like it's going to go for a while.
We could obviously go through all of them. I do want to move to the locals here in a bit, but any of the other series, anybody catching your eyes in any of the other series? I mean, it's 2 games. That's the part of this too. Like, the panic in Toronto after the first game, and
Well, yeah. So I was thinking about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, we do a thing called the concernometer and the panicometer, and you know, all that kind of stuff. It's fun stuff.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, you know, you saw this in 2019. You know, Tampa was out in 4 games. You know, you know, like you can go from concern to panic very, very quickly, and you're not wrong, right? You know, like you know, New Jersey after this unbelievable regular season could be doing, you know, a locker clean out in you know 96 hours, and it's like, what just happened, right? So yeah, I mean, I'm entertained by the Florida Boston series.
I am too.
Okay,
yeah.
So you know, that's the one that partly because, again, you're breaking this thing down, and so you sit there and you spend 10 minutes looking at the stats and considering all of the options, and I do like to look at what happened a year ago, especially if the teams are fundamentally the same teams, right? So a year ago, going into the playoffs, Florida was the President's Trophy winners, and the Boston Bruins were the wild card team. And so then you look at the teams and you say, okay, are they fundamentally different? Well, yeah, Matthew Tkachuk changes the you know the picture in Florida, but he's an elite player, and Huberdeau was an elite player, you know, and it's still important to have Barkov there, and it's still important to have Montour and Ekblad on the blue line, and they, you know, they relied on Bobrovsky last year, and they're going with that youngster Alex Lyon this year. So it's a little bit different, and Boston similarly, they have Krejci, they didn't have him last year, but you know, to me, it wasn't going to be a coronation. And I remember writing that. It's not a coronation. And the history of the National Hockey League is that these teams that go wire to wire, like Boston does, they use a lot of energy to get there. You know, it's just hard to maintain that consistent high level from the start of the year to the finish. And eventually, you know, you have a little bit of a lull or whatever. And you know, and I think that could be happening with Boston. But the other factor in Boston is you take Bergeron out of that lineup, and everything that just clicked into place, right? There's your first line, there's your second line, there's your third line, here's your support guy. It on paper, when Bergeron is at 1C, everything else flows naturally. You take 1C out of there, and it's like nothing fits. It's like one of those, you know, puzzles, you know, like all of a sudden you can't make those things fit properly. So, you know, and how much time is he going to miss? Hard to say. But I thought that Florida was a team that underperformed this year and is better than they are, and probably Boston is a team that overperformed and maybe isn't as good as 65 wins in 82 games implied. So I thought that was going to be an interesting series. My panel, every one of them said, you know, well, Florida's dangerous. None of them had the courage to pick Florida, and guess what? I wouldn't have either. But I thought they had a puncher's chance, and so far they've shown that they do.
They're not scared.
No, why would
they're not scared.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, good for Calgary fans if you want to watch. It might give you a little bit of flashback, but you know, young Ryan Lomberg.
Oh yeah,
or I guess he's not young anymore, but Ryan Lomberg. You know, that's why you bring these kids along, and you know, maybe you shouldn't choke the other guy, but he got under their skin.
He's a catalyst.
He's a catalyst.
He's a catalyst. Yeah. And Sam Bennett. I mean, what, you know, that has anyone mentioned playoff Sam Bennett on the air here in Calgary in the last?
Well,
no,
that's
probably not.
No. The only thing I want to say about that is you probably don't remember it, but every time you did Bob McCowan's podcast, I text you because it frustrates me because they never listen to you. They talk over you. And Bob was doing his whole rant about there's nobody out there, and you brought Sam Bennett up. Sam Bennett could be. This is the Sam Bennett that everybody likes. This is the Sam Bennett that the teams want. This is the Sam Bennett that's a difference maker.
Yeah, and boy, he was good in game 2. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I see him play like that, I'm sure, you know, we just comment on it. You know, can you imagine if you're his employer, you know, and you see what you can get from him in selective situations, and you think, if only we could get that out of him more consistently.
Yep.
I mean, he was picked behind Draisaitl, one player behind Leon Draisaitl in the draft. And I think that there is so much more to him there, but the only thing that's lacking and has been lacking all the way along is consistency. And you know, at this stage of the game, are you going to get it? Maybe not. But I will tell you this: if you're a team that consistently feels it's going to be in the playoffs, to have someone that can raise the level of his game when it gets to the playoffs is a nice luxury to have.
I've always wondered about Sam Bennett, that if he wasn't a little bit of a victim of Bob Hartley's promotion machine.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Bob Hartley was coaching this team, there wasn't a lot going on real good, and you're trying to distract people. So can't wait to get Sam Bennett back. Oh, Sam Bennett looks good.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was, very rarely does a coach pump the tires of a young player like Bob Hartley did, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, that's a good point. I don't know. To me, development can be so inconsistent, and you have these little plateaus and then dips and plateaus and dips, and then eventually you either figure out the consistency of being an NHL player 82 games a year, which is hard to do, but the really good ones will give you 65 to 70.
Yep.
And if you can get that out of most of your team, then and you're a good team, you'll be in the playoffs. But you see it the other way too. You see players that tease you with their ability, and there are times when they'll show you in a game or in a stretch that they have above NHL level skill, and then all of a sudden, like you don't notice them for 2 weeks, and that eventually you have to make an evaluation, and maybe somebody else needs to try and find the buttons on that player because you can't push the right ones.
Monday, something happened that has not happened in the history of the Calgary Flames before, as Peter Marr pointed out. A general manager with offers to stay walked away from this team. Mm-hmm. Waited a couple hours, went to the Athletic. You wrote it. I read it. The whole thing, sat back in my chair, took a deep sigh and said, I'm not insane. Mm-hmm. You and I see this exactly the same way. Can I ask you this? Were you surprised by what happened on Monday?
Well, I'm surprised. No, because if it had gone the other way, I wouldn't have been surprised at that either.
Right.
I think that I think again, first of all, the first clue is that, it was widely reported that Brad Treliving had an opportunity to sign an extension last summer and chose not to. And the idea was that let's see how this year goes, and let's see where things are at. And then I think that that there was a lot of what do I want to do next, involved in this decision. And I think that people have to understand that people in positions of prominence like Brad Treliving are no different than you and I, right? You get to a crossroads in your life. Like I'm approaching one myself.
Sure.
Like, what do I do this summer? Do I retire? Do I stay on? I go back and forth. I change my mind every 24 hours. I don't know. I'm genuinely unsure about what my professional future is. And I think that was probably the case for Brad. He has opportunities outside of hockey if he wants them. I think he ideally would like to work in hockey again. I think that he works so hard, puts in so many hours. He just struck me as someone that was verging on burning out, and that's certainly the messaging from his very good friend Don Maloney, who's taking over as president of hockey operations, that he just needs a break. And I understand that. Especially when you think about the way the NHL season is structured, the one person who won in one of those managerial seats that wasn't able to take a breath this summer was Brad Treliving, because of all of the,
that's right.
There was the Gaudreau drama, and then there was the Tkachuk drama, and there was trying to sort out the trade, and then there was the recruiting of Nazem Kadri, and then all of a sudden they're at training camp, and now you're waiting for the puck to drop at the start of the season. So it takes a toll on people, and at some point I'm sure Brad will emerge and give us his version of why he chose to do what he did. But I'm texted with him, but I'm leaving him alone to just to sort out what he wants to do next, because I think that's what he needs to do. He needs to just exhale a little bit and go from there. So that's that part of the equation. Then the second part of the equation is, so now a very interesting job has opened up in the National Hockey League. And it didn't surprise me when Don Maloney revealed at that first press conference that he was hearing from people that he hadn't heard from in 15 years, because believe it or not, this is a very attractive position. It's a hockey team. If you're looking to become a general manager in the National Hockey League, it's hard sometimes to take over a team that has had a really great year. And then, where are you going to go? The only place you can go is down. I think the perception around the National Hockey League is that the Flames have quite a good team that underperformed, and that no matter what happens next year, it's going to be better. So that's an enviable position to be in. You're starting as a non-playoff team, albeit the the non-playoff team with the best record, and you have these pieces, and there is a potentially a path forward to be very good. Now, that path forward, I think, you have to decide what you're going to do with your coach, which is critical. I think if you are hiring a general manager, and if the decision is that we are retaining our coach, then the manager coming in has to know that he doesn't have completely free reign, because he has to find a way of working with Daryl Sutter. If the decision is made to move on from the coach, that gives any manager coming in a bit more flexibility to chart a path going forward. And then as a manager going forward, obviously the first thing you need to do is at least get a sense from the players that are 1 year out from UFA about why would they stay in Calgary? Like, what if you're Elias Lindholm, what will it take to get you to stay? If you're Mikhail Backlund, what will it take? If you're Noah Hannafin, what will it take? And I'm sure the answer through their representative is going to be, well, I want to see where things go. I want to see who's the coach. I want to see who are my teammates. Do we have a chance to win? If you can put together a roster that has a chance to be competitive, that potentially mirrors the 111 point team that they had 2 years ago, then I think that will entice players to stay. Let's face it, when you get to a certain point in your career, the money's probably going to be there. So now you have a chance and a choice to make the decisions about your future based on family and lifestyle, and the opportunity to win a Stanley Cup. And so as attractive as that job is, I think you really have to have a special set of skills to be able to do it. I think you have to be a people person. I think you have to have leadership skills. I think you have to create an environment that makes that makes the players and everybody involved in the organization feel included, feel like they have to say. Like, you want to have the ability to get out of bed in the morning and want to go to work. You just want to go to work, and that's why I think, again, no one's asked me, although I always volunteer my opinion anyway. I think Craig Conroy's the perfect guy. I mean, we've known him forever. I think he's checked every box. He was a popular teammate, and he demonstrated great leadership during all those years that they had, average teams with Jerome McGinley and Mika Kiprusoff. But he and Martin Gelinas were important parts on the ice, off the ice. Like, they just helped it. They were like, lubricating oil. They just helped the parts run more smoothly. And then the other thing I like about Craig Conroy is I think he's a hard worker, and I think he's climbed every rung of the ladder. The only thing that drives me crazy, and this isn't just in pro sports but in life, is that when sometimes people just jump and from here to there, and they don't climb those rungs, and they don't get the necessary experience. So they're not in the college rinks, and they're not in the junior rinks, and they're not in Russia at the international tournaments scouting players. They're just here's a really smart guy, let's give him the chance. And I think that Craig has put in his time. I think he's smart. I think he would be a great leader. I mean, I understand the idea that you cast your net further afield because you don't want to miss anybody, but I also hope that they don't overlook this very strong candidate in their own backyard who understands, the nuances and the ins and outs of the organization, and I think is waiting for an opportunity. And I'll just share one more thought to you. So when Calgary first arrived here in 80-81, general manager was Cliff Fletcher. The assistant general manager was David Poile. I got to know David a little bit because he'd just sidle up to you in the press box and you tease each other back and forth. But when he got hired the job in Washington, I thought to myself, I don't know, I don't know. I thought after 2 years, I knew David pretty well, but, Cliff had this personality and charisma, and he was part of that, generation of general managers like Lou Nanne and Bill Torrey that just, we're kind of larger than life, and we're really running the National Hockey League. And David was more thoughtful and kind of quiet. And I thought, I don't know, does he have the leadership skills to do it? And he went into Washington, and 2 weeks later, he makes this fabulous trade with the Montreal Canadiens that effectively turned the franchise around. And it's like, okay, I guess he does, and so I see a lot of similarities. I just see a lot of the qualities that Craig Conroy has in David Poile, who's, I think, he's won more games than any other general manager in the history of the game. So, Yeah, I guess if I were to hold up a sign, it would be vote for Craig.
Well, and I'm the same way. I went as far on Wednesdays, and even today I said it. Like, I don't ask me if Craig Conroy is right for the Flames. Ask me if the Flames are right for Craig Conroy.
Yeah, that could be.
But it's also something that you mentioned in your column that has been mentioned more than I remember any other time that I've been covering this team. That's the influence of ownership.
Yeah.
Right. And that's another question, which is a question because we don't hear from Murray.
Right.
They don't talk, and it's not new. That's nothing new. That's just the way they operate. But we don't know his influence in all of this, right?
No. I mean, way back in the day when I was still covering the team for the Herald, Murray and I would have lunch, once a year, and it would always be the same. Like, he would be peppering me with questions for most of an hour, and then I would try to edge something in there, and he wouldn't tell me anything because that's just the way he operated. And then I sort of drifted out of covering a team day to day, and we stopped doing that. And then he became more influential in the ownership group. I do remember having I know because I've heard it from from him that he considered, and this was before they brought Daryl back, Daryl Sutter to be the best coach that they've ever had in the history of the organization. And I do think that, like Daryl demands a lot from his players, and that's how Murray runs his businesses. He demands a lot from his people. And so I think that, Murray sees a kindred spirit in Daryl Sutter. And I think that's why we can't answer these questions until we get a sense of, like, it feels like the owner is on side with the coach, and that the coach has a 2-year contract, and he's just going to stay on and continue to coach the team. But if that's the case, then a whole lot of other decisions might have to go in a different direction, because not everyone is going to necessarily want to come back and play for that coach. So yeah, it's difficult. The other thing I would say is that it's really hard to change, right? So when you think about, and then I'm as guilty of this as anybody, but we always evaluate on the basis of championships. So that's the only thing that matters. Even the teams that get to the Stanley Cup final, if you don't win, who remembers, like, what year was it that San Jose got to the final?
Exactly.
What year was it that
Nashville
Nashville got to the final? I mean, like, it gets blurred very quickly in history. And so, when I started covering the National Hockey League, there were 21 teams. 16 of them made the playoffs. Making the playoffs was considered a successful season. And once in a while, some of those really lousy teams would upset somebody along the way, and suddenly they're so now it's a 32 team league. 16 teams miss the playoffs. It's hard to make the playoffs. Good teams miss the playoffs. And so, but if it almost feels as if the model has to change, that if the only thing that matters is winning a Stanley Cup championship, do you need to have the ebb and flow of professional sport where you accept that you're going to be pretty terrible for a couple of years, and because you're pretty terrible for a couple of years, you get good young players hopefully into the system that can make a difference, and then you start to build up, and then you supplement those players with more experienced players, and then you reach a point where for a 5 to 7 year period, you have a chance to compete. Maybe you win, maybe you don't. But then at that point, you just can't keep hoping to turn 7 years into 10 years and 10 years into 12 and 12 into 15. It happened in the past because there were fewer teams, but it's just harder to do right now. I always say, do the math, 32 teams, 100 years in a century, so 3 championships per century, right? Not a lot. And so and yet the philosophy here has been, we have a chance, and we've got a good group, and so we're not taking a step back. We're going to patch and plug, and in patching and plugging, recently anyway, hasn't worked as a methodology for winning championships. Pittsburgh wins, Sidney Crosby. Washington wins, Alex Ovechkin, right? Tampa wins, Nikita Kucherov. And if Edmonton wins this year, Connor McDavid. Toronto, Austin Matthews. I mean, the Calgary's got lots and lots of good players, but there isn't anyone that jumps off the page. And last year they had 2 that were close.
Very close.
Gaudreau, and they're not here anymore. No. So and yeah. Anyway, so it's a challenge, and I don't pretend to have the answers because it's so complex and complicated, and but I don't see how you can change the expectations of fans. I mean, fans want to,
they want to win.
They want Stanley Cup parades.
Yeah.
And so, if the goal, and again, John Bean and Don Maloney on Monday, the goal is to win a Stanley Cup championship. Well, if the goal is to win a Stanley Cup championship, and I put it this way, I wouldn't, at this stage of the game, with the money that you've got committed to Huberdeau, I would try and give this group one more year just to see where you're at. But at some point soon, you may have to make the decision that it didn't work out with this group, and you have to make a turn. And I don't think you're going to see it between now and June of 2024. But at some point soon after that, depending again on the result of the 2023-24 season, you might have to have that organizational day of reckoning that they've been putting off for a long time.
Never drafted higher than 4th.
Yeah. Sam Bennett
and Corey Stillman, right?
Yeah. Wasn't.
But it's of that vintage.
Yes, exactly.
I'm just going off the top of my head.
Yeah, I thought Stillman was a 6th, but you know what, Rob? I'm not remembering things as clearly as I once did.
No, but have never drafted first. And this is not a shot at Edmonton. I guess it is, but four first overalls in 6 years, right? In the lottery system.
Yeah.
And if again, the only thing that I really cringe at, because a lot of this stuff that was said on Monday was said by Jay Feaster before.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people are reporting this is some sort of revelation. But remember Feaster, the year after they traded Ginla and Bouwmeester, he was on TSN saying, my job is to get this team in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
And they got a lot of heat for that. But I'm not allowed to say the R word. I'm not allowed to say rebuild. Oh, crap. Let's, that crap just drives me around the bend. People are pretty smart, savvy, right? You can't. That reminds me a bit of, we won't show home games on TV because nobody will come.
Well, I agree with you, because I do think that, hockey fans in Calgary, Edmonton, Winnipeg, Vancouver, Toronto, Ottawa are pretty sophisticated. Most people grew up playing the game or watching the game or having something to do with the game, or if they weren't doing it, somebody in the family was, and they kind of got drawn in. So you might be able to pull the wool over people's eyes in maybe less sophisticated markets, but it's hard to do in Canada.
I agree. Last one before you go. Just a thought, and I mentioned it as you came in. He's now the MVP. The last 4 years, he has been the top goalie in 2 different leagues every year. I'm not sure what is left for 22-year-old Dustin Wolf, who got a little taste at the end. But man, you've covered this team. I've covered this team. I don't remember a prospect for the Flames having kind of this much acclaim in his first 2 years in the AHL.
Not in the AHL. No, I was thinking Mike Vernon, the way his junior career evolved,
right.
And I covered him in junior, but I thought that when he got his chance, he would be a good goaltender.
Sure.
I think I can produce articles to prove that I was a big proponent of Mike Vernon coming through the ranks. But you're right. Other than Vernon, if you think about somebody that they drafted and developed internally, they've tried, a lot of times. But really, the other goaltender that made a huge impact here was Kiprusoff, who they traded for. And so you're right. It's hard to draft and develop goaltenders. Like Carey Price was a high draft choice, ended up having a great career. Marc-Andre Fleury, a high draft choice, ended up having a great career. If you can steal a guy in the 7th round and then have him be like in this very, very short period of time, a guy that appears to be on the cusp of being ready to play in the National Hockey League, then again, good on the scouting staff for doing that. But I agree with you. Well, there were times this season, and I'm sure this has come up on talk radio and on your show too, that when Markstrom was struggling, why not? Why not try Dustin Wolf? Where's the dressing room? Like, it's
I know.
It's it's not like you're flying him in from Stockton anymore. He's right here, and it looks like you need a boost. But again, that comes down to an organizational philosophy, and the Flames, their season is on the line. They can't win the game in overtime. They can't win it in the shootout. They have good players, but they don't have a Trevor Zegras. They don't have, the two that they had were in the press box, right? Jacob Pelche and Matt Coronado were watching the game. There's a reason teams put young talent in the lineup. Again, it's a different era, right?
It is a different era.
In the old days of ties, it didn't matter. In the old days of 5 on 5 overtime, it didn't matter. But now it's 3 on 3 overtime. Now there's a shootout. There are points to be gained if you can excel in those situations. And when you don't excel in those situations, and then you look at the shootout record of the veteran players, I mean, Rob, I'm watching the thing and I'm thinking they're just going to shoot it right in the pads of the goaltender. There's you don't have any confidence that puck is going to go in, and you're going to see a little bit of razzle and dazzle that it fools a goaltender. And so, again, some of it, like, I'm often accused of being stuck in the old ways. But the one thing that I do recognize is that there is a place for young talent in the lineup all the time, because they grew up on shootouts. They grew up on 3 on 3 overtime. It's not new to them. They embrace it. There's a confidence bordering on cockiness for these guys that even when they're very new in the National Hockey League, well, you see, who did Nashville trot out? These
they were all first years.
They were all guys that they brought up from the minors because they traded away half their team and the other half was injured, and they got the job done. And so, is it second guessing? I mean, I'm watching the thing and I'm thinking this isn't going to work out. I don't think it is second guessing. So you have to show a willingness to, when a player appears to be ready, sometimes, and they probably take their lumps in the first little while, and you just have to live with that. You just have to live with the fact that a young player, who, especially, players who are, drafted, later in the first round, that aren't going to Connor McDavid you or whatever. It'll take time, but if you have faith in your scouting staff, if you have faith enough in these players to sign them, you have to have faith enough to use them.
Appreciate this. When next we speak, I believe you're back on the road again in a couple weeks.
It's hard to say. Yeah, probably. I can't even keep track anymore, Rob. I you know what? Honestly, this is terrible. I go day by day. I look at today's schedule. Okay, I'm doing Rob's podcast. I'm doing John Shannon's. I've got my notebook due. I've got to watch the games tonight. That's today. And
are you on Bob McCowan's podcast?
You bet.
So when I go home for my run tonight, I'm listening to you.
You'll have to. But
is there new material?
No, I saved my A material for you.
Oh, wow. There I go without saying. Okay, perfect.
No. For some reason, they've settled on Burnside and I as a hockey,
duo.
Yeah, I guess so. I actually wish they'd use Morganti, but I guess because Morganti and I used to be on McCown's show when it was on the radio, and that was really a lot of fun. So, but I like working with Scotty too. We work together at the Athletic, and he's a good friend. And the beauty of it, of course, is that John Shannon really knows the game, and Bob, he'll throw something out just to get our backs up, and then we'll seize on it like. And it'll work, and half an hour later,
the old why don't goalies play 82 games?
Well,
the argument
that one didn't come up today.
Okay, good. Anyway, thank you for doing this.
Okay,
we'll see you in a couple weeks.
All right, great. Thanks, Rob.
Eric Duhatschek from The Athletic joining us. Of course, our guest brought to you by Ski Cellar Snowboard, skicellarsnowboard.com. 76 years in Calgary, sure. But what you need to know is surprise spring pop-up sale tomorrow. 40% off of everything from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. One day only. One day only. All 3 locations, 17th Avenue Southwest, just off of 14th Street, McLeod Trail by Chinook Center, and Bow Ridge Road Northwest by McDonald's at the bottom of the hill by Windsport there. SkiCellarSnowboard.com. Just a final thought here in the final mile. Again, my love of golf, helping out a great cause. Talked about this on Wednesday. If you're looking for something to do in August, Tee It Up for Pets, supporting Parachutes for Pets, which is a great organization. They've got a golf tournament coming up out in Speargrass. Would love to see you there. I'm going to be there. Looking forward to it. Look them up. Find out what they're all about, and then make your decision. But if you're a golfer, this is one you shouldn't miss. It's been a busy week. Next week, holy cow, next week. Chevy and Nasty, both of them in studio on Monday, as well as Ryan Pike. How about this on Wednesday? We found him. We got him out of the witness protection program. Bruce Dobiggin is going to be live in studio. Holy cow. We've got shows aplenty coming next week. Thanks to all of our guests this week. Thanks to Gavin. And thanks to Jack, our outstanding producer, Mark Prince. Thanks to you as always. Love getting the feedback and hearing from you guys. And we'll do it again on Monday. Have a great weekend, everybody.
When there's two sides to every coin, then there's a conversation you can join. But I'm an old dog and there's new tricks, and some of my opinions you just can't fix. 'Cause I'm an old man yelling at the sky. I'ma shake my fist at the clouds and cry. Get off my lawn, you snowflake, before I have a meltdown, breakdown, shakedown. 'Cause this is my hometown, so back